celebration over in Okabena. In school, Lloyd was a multi-sport athlete, and he was an avid outdoorsman with a passion for hunting and fishing. And today he continues to live an active outdoor lifestyle despite some physical challenges and obstacles. We're very pleased that Lloyd was able to join us today and share his story with us. Please welcome Lloyd Kaus.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Jeff, and thank you all so much for being here today. I'm excited for the opportunity to share with you my story. And my story begins 7 years ago. I was starting my senior year of college at Northland College in Ashland, Wisconsin. And I had much anticipation for not only my senior year of college basketball there, but what was to also come after I had graduated that next spring. You see, I had a strong passion for the outdoors and natural resources. And upon graduation, my hope was to find a career where I could work to protect natural resources for future generations. And I really wanted to just find a job that I enjoyed going to each and every day. And I guess I can say that officially my story begins on this very day. So on October 6, 2010, I was beginning to warm up and prepare for basketball practice that day. And it was something I had done many, many times in my high school and college career. And being a senior that year, I was a captain on our team. And I noticed that 3 of my fellow captains had been pulled out of the gym by my coach. Now, at the time, I really didn't think too much about it. I just kind of shrugged it off. And a few moments later, my coach returned to the gym and asked me to follow him into a small conference room located just outside the gymnasium. But when I entered that conference room, I noticed that a fellow captain had tears in his eyes. Next, my coach handed me a cell phone and said, "Here, it's your mom." And I put that cell phone to my ear, and I heard my mom crying. And she said, "Lloyd, Dad is gone." And it was an incredible shock. I had no idea how to react at first. My father wasn't sick or ill. It was very, very sudden and unexpected. And losing my dad had a profound effect on the rest of my year in college. However, it had even greater effect on the decisions I made following graduation. See, my dad was an incredible family man, and he had instilled in me the importance of family. And when I graduated, I had been offered a position in South Dakota that I would have absolutely loved. It was precisely the line of work that I was looking to get into, and would have probably one day retired from that job. However, because my father instilled in me the importance of family, I made the decision to instead take a job back home where I could be there for my mom and I could help her run and operate our small family farm. So I was working full-time at a soil and water district in Windham, Minnesota. And all the while I was making repairs on our buildings and machinery. And I also worked for a relative of mine in order to gain additional knowledge of farming and when to harvest and spray and when the crops are ready. And in the fall, I spent considerable time working in the field, harvesting our crop and the crop of my relatives whom I worked for. I spent so much time in the field, in fact, that I often did not get home till 2 or 3 in the morning. I then needed to get up and be at work at 8 a.m. the next day. So I remained very busy during that time. And despite being so busy, I made sure to make time to go visit my grandma, as she had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And so I watched her slowly die a little bit more each and every day. And when you have a loved one who is terminally ill, and you see that happening, it's a very hard thing to deal with. Now, I won't forget the day I went to visit my grandma. And at that point, she no longer could speak to us anymore. And when I was to get up and leave, I knew it would be the last time I would be in the room with her while she was still alive. So I kissed her on the forehead, told her I loved her, and said goodbye. And that night, she passed away. So, in just a very short time, I had lost 2 of the most influential people in my life. And it's difficult to lose the figures in your life who are so important to you. But I continue to be there for my mom. and staying busy on the farm helped me keep my mind off of those things. And being a young man, I also needed to find some time to have a little fun, and my younger sister Anna was in a wedding. She was one of the bridesmaids and had invited me down to the reception and wedding dance. And as these situations sometimes go, there just so happened to be a pretty girl that I was sort of fond of. And I was excited to go to the wedding dance, of course. So I put on my best wedding duds, and I hopped in my car with my broom at my side, ready to go sweep this pretty girl off her feet. And halfway down to the reception and dance, I received a phone call from my younger sister. And she told me that the bride was being somewhat of a bridezilla, and that the reception and dance was not very fun, and there was people leaving. So she told me that, I might as well turn around and go home. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to sweep that girl off her feet, and I turned around and headed for home. Now, at the time, I was living on a small acreage that was just 2 miles from our family farm. And the shortcut to my place was just past that farm where I had grown up. And so as I neared my house, I took the shortcut past our farm, drove past the neighbor's place. I remember going down a small hill and then up the other side. And from there, my memory goes blank. My memory goes blank, and I woke up in a hospital from a coma 3 days later. And when I woke up in the hospital, I knew where I was. However, I had no idea why I was there. Now, when I woke up, my mom was in the room with me, and she said, "Lloyd, you were in a bad car accident." And I had no recollection of that happening. And I had no recollection of that event because while I was driving home that evening, my heart stopped. And I slumped over the wheel, went into the ditch, and I rolled my car 3 times. Now, unfortunately, I was not wearing my seatbelt during that accident. And the doctors were quite amazed that I was able to survive such a rollover while not wearing my seatbelt. And during that accident, I sustained some very serious injuries. I broke my neck and injured my spinal cord. I had 4 broken ribs, a broken collarbone. Both my lungs were partially collapsed and badly bruised. And all these injuries had me laying in a hospital bed in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I was laying in that bed and I couldn't move or feel any portion of my body from my neck down. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't have been able to tell you if my arms were at my side or if they were tied in a knot above my head. Now, I wasn't able to breathe on my own at that point. I was on a ventilator. I was unable to eat or drink anything. All of the fluids and nutrition that I got, I received through an IV or a feeding tube. And worst of all, I was able to speak to any of my family and friends that were in the hospital to see me. And that was probably the single most difficult thing to deal with. As after a traumatic accident like that, that's the one thing you really wish you could do, is talk to your loved ones. Now, the spinal cord injury and neck fracture that I had required some surgical repair. And the doctors placed some screws and some rods in my neck to hold the vertebrae together. Also at that time in the hospital, my heart continued to stop. At one point, my heart stopped for an entire minute. That's when the doctors decided that they needed to put a pacemaker in, so that when my heart stopped, the pacemaker would help to once again get it beating again. Now, after I was in the hospital in Sioux Falls for about 3 weeks, the doctors decided that it was time for me to go to a rehab hospital where I would finish my recovery. So I decided to go to Madonna Rehab Hospital in Lincoln, Nebraska. Now, when I arrived there, at that point, I still couldn't move or feel any portion of my body below my shoulders. I still couldn't eat or drink. I was unable to breathe on my own power. And I still couldn't speak to my family and friends. Now, when I was at the rehab hospital, my first few weeks there, I had incredible neck pain. I had this incredible neck pain when I was moved or repositioned in my bed, or anytime my bed was changed. And finally, the doctors decided to do another x-ray of my neck. And at that point, they realized that the initial surgery that was done to repair the fracture had come apart. And so the rods and screws that they had placed were pulling out and sticking places that they shouldn't be. And that, of course, required that the doctors do some additional surgery. And that additional surgery took place in two separate phases. The first phase took about 8 hours. And that second phase took about 6 hours. So in all, with the initial surgery and the repair work done after that first surgery had fallen apart, I had a total of 22 hours of surgery on my neck. And doctors placed 3 rods and 18 screws in my neck to secure that fracture. Up until that point, I had been moved and repositioned in my bed, all while my neck was still broken. And after those final surgeries, I was finally able to begin to start healing. However, I continued to have additional complications, including frequent urinary tract infections. I had a few different occasions where I had kidney stones. I struggled with times of very high blood pressure, where I would be in a full body sweat with my head pounding. I had times where my blood pressure was so low that I couldn't sit upright in bed. I had an ongoing sore throat from medications I was on. And I was also bothered by pain in my jaw. And all these complications and additional things I was dealing with kept me from doing the rehab I needed to do to recover from all of those injuries I sustained in the accident. And with time, I slowly began to get a little bit better each day. And while I was in the rehab hospital, I never remember being afraid or scared. I always knew that God's hand was guiding me through all of the therapy and all of the pain. I knew He was with me, just as He was with Daniel in the lion's den. So just like Daniel, my lion's den was the hospital. And the mouths of the hungry lions were the injuries that I was fighting to recover from. And little by little, God allowed me to get better. I slowly began to be able to eat pureed foods and thickened liquids, which didn't taste very good at all. And after not eating for weeks, you're kind of excited to have a little something in your mouth. But I wasn't too excited to eat that pureed food. I also started to get past some of the additional complications and the high blood pressure. And finally, I was able to speak with my friends and family. And that was probably one of the single greatest accomplishments that I had while recovering at Madonna Hospital. It felt so incredible to be able to speak with the people who came to visit me and with my mom and sisters. And as I battled the complications and recovery, I finally was looking at the possibility of going home. And on 3 occasions, the doctors pushed back my discharge date. But finally, on the day before Thanksgiving, the doctors allowed me to go home. And needless to say, that was a very special Thanksgiving for me, as I got to spend it at home with my family. However, I wasn't out of the woods yet. Even though I was home, I continued to battle with urinary tract infections that made me very sick. I continued to have kidney stones, which required surgeries. And some of these illnesses had me in the hospital for up to 3 weeks at a time. And it often felt like I was in the hospital every other week. Now, at one point, I had gotten so sick and become malnourished and extremely thin. And at that point, while I was in the hospital, I wasn't able to keep any food down any longer. Anything that I tried to eat, I would vomit back up. And this went on for several days. And the doctors finally realized I had become so thin that an artery had collapsed and pinched off my intestine. And so the doctors placed a tube up my nose, down past my mouth, through my esophagus and into my stomach to allow the bile and excess food and fluid that had built up a way to exit my body. And it's a good thing the Lord gave us two nostrils, because the doctor decided to place a second tube down my other nostril, past my mouth and through my esophagus, into and past my stomach, into my small intestine, and past that blockage. And this tube was used for tube feedings so that I could have some nutrition. And once again, have my body nourished to the point where that artery, which is normally held by fat, could right itself and not block my digestive tract. And so once again, I started to slowly get a little bit better, more and more each day. And I began to have less urinary tract infections, less issues with kidney stones. And so I was able to stay away from the hospital. But while I was in the hospital, I was very blessed to have Pastor Jim Albrecht come visit me. And on each visit, he would remind me that the Lord does not allow trials and hardships into our lives without also bringing a blessing. And for some time, I thought that blessing would be that I would get better, that I would be able to walk again, that God would restore the strong physical body that I had prior to my accident. And God has greatly blessed me as a result of the hardships I have faced. And as an outsider looking in, you may say, well, Lloyd, how have you been blessed? You still can't walk. You have limited use of your arms and hands. You're not able to take care of yourself on your own. And while all of that may be true, God has given me a much richer and more meaningful life than I ever could have planned on my own. See, I had plans of getting that job and career that I loved. I wanted to hunt elk in the Rocky Mountains, go on horseback trips, and fish alpine lakes. I wanted to fly fish in Yellowstone National Park. And while I planned to do all these things, some of these are obviously unattainable to me. But those plans I had are nothing compared to the plan that God has for me as a result of what I have been through. The hardships I've been through have brought me here today. And I've been blessed in that I have the opportunity to inspire other people to pursue what they have a passion for in their life, regardless of any obstacles that they may need to overcome. More importantly, I am able to bring others closer to Christ and to show people how God's plan for them is far better than the plan that they could ever have for themselves. And that's why I'm so richly blessed, because God's plan for me is to be able to show others my faith and inspire them to see God's own hand in their life. So I thank you all so much for being here today. And may God richly bless His plan for you in your life. Thank you.
We've got some time here yet. If anybody wants to ask some questions, Lloyd, I know I have some myself, but I'll let you guys go first. And because we are streaming this, I'll repeat your questions so that whoever's watching can hear. Jesse. How long were you in the hospital for? Total? Or after the initial? Okay.
Well, my accident was in June. I believe it was June 15th. And I was in the intensive care unit in Sioux Falls, South Dakota for about 3 weeks. And then I got home that day before Thanksgiving. So I was in the hospital and at the rehab hospital from June until November, where I got home that day before Thanksgiving. So basically the whole summer, half the fall. So too long.
I have a question, Lloyd. I know you said you were out antelope hunting a week or so ago, and you still hunt regularly. I wonder if you can share a little bit how you do that.
Well, I was, again, blessed to have a therapist, a physical therapist who also enjoyed hunting. And she kind of pointed me in the right direction to get the equipment I needed in order to do that. And one of the kind of neatest parts of what I used to go hunting is the track chair that you see in the photographs. I wouldn't be able to get a lot of places without that, certainly. But I have a mount that goes on both this chair and the track chair that holds my rifle, shotgun, or my crossbow. And I have a small joystick that I use my chin or mouth with to move the gun or bow up, down, left, and right. And there's a straw similar to the one you see here on my chair that I sip on that holds the trigger. So that's how I'm able to go hunting with a track chair and that gun rest. So.
Yeah, Joey? Sorry. What college did you go to?
Northland College in Ashland, Wisconsin. It's a small Division III school. So I played 4 years of college basketball there.
What was the process by which you regained the ability to breathe independently? And is it completely independent at this point?
Yeah, I can breathe completely on my own. And how they kind of go about that is they slowly start weaning you off the vent little by little. And I know the person that was in charge of that process for me would leave the vent off for just short periods during the night at first, and then, of course, longer and longer periods. And then they started to leave it off during the day. And that's kind of when I really started to progress off of that, which I'm really glad the Lord allowed that to happen. So.
Do you use a specific outfitter for your hunting? Are they equipped for handicapped access?
Well, I have a lot of friends in the right places, basically. So I get to go to places like Wyoming, various locations in South Dakota. I have a couple of friends who work for outfitters, one of which has been on some of the TV shows that you see with the Primos, bone collectors. So if you know some of those guys, I got a few buddies that kind of know them. So through people I know, I guess is kind of how I am able to get to go on some of those hunts, which some of those people I've met as a result of my accident. So.
Yeah.
You said that you had your heart stopped and you were driving. Did the doctor explain to you what happened?
It was kind of something electrical, from what I remember hearing. So they put that pacemaker in so that when it does stop, it kind of gives it a shock. to start it again. But it was kind of a strange deal. Prior to that accident, I had a few different occasions where I get real lightheaded, or I could feel, like something that I normally would have a very easy time doing was a lot harder. For example, lifting weights, a few times I, all of a sudden just felt real weak. And I do recall when I had my wisdom teeth out, my heart was kind of beating at an irregular rate. So it kind of sounded electrical with the heart. I'm not a cardiologist, so I can't explain that all that well, but that's kind of some of the things that led up to that accident and kind of went along with that situation.
I notice you have a couple of people here with you. How big is your support group and your caregivers?
I have a few different caregivers that I have come in to help me with my daily routine. A few of which, are there more often than others, but I would say my overall support group is incredibly large. I, come from a small community and everybody knows everybody, so there's always people volunteering to help me out in different ways, whether it's mowing my lawn or help me get my honey blind out or, just anything like that. So I'm very fortunate to have a lot of people in my life that care a lot about me and do a lot for me. So.
Who found you after the accident?
One of the neighbors actually came down the road shortly after the accident happened. So again, fortunate there that he found me shortly after I had gone in the ditch and rolled over. So.
What's the purpose of the braces on the forearms?
Because I can't control my wrists, if I didn't have the brace on, my wrists would just kind of hang. So it supports my wrists, and then on this arm I have a stylus attached to the brace, and that allows me to use my cell phone and the mouse on my laptop and things like that. So they're kind of support both my wrists and then allows me to do different things.
What was the first meal that you ate when you could finally eat solid food?
Well, I was at the hospital there, and none of their food was all that great, to be honest. But the first solid thing I had was mac and cheese, and that was okay.
Do we have some more details on the job that you were intending to do after college? The one out in South Dakota?
That position basically kind of was a habitat specialist. I would have been working to restore like native prairies and do a lot of weed control on different properties and help establish wildlife habitat in that region of South Dakota. And that's something I kind of had my hand in. In high school, we had some acres that on our farm that we decided to put back into native prairies. So that's kind of how I got to start really enjoying that type of work, and would have really enjoyed that job, but God had his hand involved in my life and had a far better plan for me. So.
Nick?
Have you experienced a plateau in your recovery, or is there a possibility of regaining more function as to how you used to live?
Yeah, it's pretty much plateaued, but with the spinal cord injury, you never really know. For example, I was doing some outpatient rehab after I was home, and I, just started to regain a little bit of movement in this one wrist. So, I mean, it's always possible. And, so you're hopeful that things can progress. And there's all kinds of research out there and studies going on. They're doing some pretty amazing things. So, never know.
June?
Do you have any specific Bible verses or hymns that have been particularly helpful to you throughout your recovery?
I guess not a specific verse, but I really enjoy the book of Job because he went through some incredible struggles in his life, and being able to read and hear the accounts that he and things that he went through is probably most helpful.
France?
You mentioned how difficult it was in that period of time when you could not talk, and you had screws and rods coming out of position in your spine. You had urinary tract infections and kidney stones. Very painful. How did you alert them and communicate to them your pain so that they could give you some attention in these areas?
I guess, one of the ways they had like a board with certain words on, and they point and kind of nod my head a little bit, or they point to letters so I could spell different words. I could mouth different things, even though I couldn't speak. Actually, I could mouth words, make kind lip read. And usually when I was, spelling these words or asking for things, it was something I couldn't have, like water or a steak dinner or something.
Did your ability to speak come back quite quickly after the neck was properly realigned and fixed, or was that quite a slow process?
Yeah, it's kind of, same thing with getting off the ventilator. There's actually a valve they put in your trach. That's called a pass-the-beer valve, I think. And that allows the air to flow properly where you can start to speak again. But, just like when you don't use certain muscles, they get weak. So you got to build those muscles back up, just like for chewing and swallowing was the same thing. So that's why they started on some of that lousy pureed stuff. So.
On a little different tack, if there are students that are interested in the same career that you were interested in, why did you pick Northland and Ashland, besides the fact you could play basketball?
That school is actually the second school here in Wisconsin next to Stevens Point, as far as the courses and opportunities they have for participation in different studies. So they're known as a natural resources and outdoor related school. So that's one of the reasons I chose to go there. Plus there's awesome hunting and fishing in that area, so that was motivation as well. So,
what was the name of that special lady?
what was her name now? Ashley, I believe.
Lloyd, you still fish as well?
I was out ice fishing with some friends this past winter. Not able to do that quite on my own yet, but they have some different things that allow you to hold a rod and reel in the fish. So that's kind of on the list of things that I'm still pursuing. So.
Did she happen to reach out to you, or did you reach out to her? What's the status on that?
I'm not sure how to answer that. Let's just say never had the opportunity to sweep her off her feet. We'll stay with that one.
Yes.
Do you still feel like your legs get cold or something, or not?
As far as temperature, I guess I can't feel if my legs are cold or hot. But the portion of my body that I can feel and have sensation, basically like mid chest up, like it'll be, hypersensitive. So if my legs are cold or my body's cold, like that part of my body feels sort of extra cold, I guess, if that makes sense. Same thing with touch, I can't feel if, someone's touching my leg, but anything that touches me above that portion of my body that I can feel is, sort of hypersensitive to touch. So at times, the nerves, it feels good to be touched, other times it hurts. So, so when I get cold, it's like, I'm all of a sudden like really cold because I can't feel that my legs are getting cold per se. So once I feel it where I'm actually able to feel it, it's like I'm super cold. So that takes me a while to warm up.
Well,
So do you get hungry
you have a sensation of hunger.
Oh yeah.
Have you found other people within our synod who have undergone similar experiences as you that you can relate to? If you have, do they feel about it exactly the same way as you do, or are there certain ways they feel differently about their incident and their recovery?
That's a very good question. The person that comes to mind for me would be Jeff. Can't recall his last name. I met him when I spoke at the congregation in Frickley, I think. And he's in a wheelchair and paralyzed from the waist down. And he has used his opportunity to do different things as a result of his injury. He and I kind of have just started to trade emails a little bit. So I guess we've not gotten into such great detail yet as to how we deal with paralysis and things that we go through every day. But that topic may come up. I'm sorry I don't know that answers your question all that well, but that's a very thoughtful question, so I appreciate that.
You talked about the procedures that you've been through. What was your emotional? How did you feel emotionally?
Question about the emotional side of things with the procedures.
Yeah, pain is a temporary thing, so that in a way is easy to deal with. Dealing with things emotionally is a lot more difficult at times. But I, continue to look at God's plan for me and how, his plan is better than the one that I could ever imagine in my mind. And, emotionally, I think God's allowed me to see, all the good times that I still can have, despite, the limitations and, thoughts of things that I no longer can do. But the opportunities that I do have allow me to emotionally deal with the ones that I can't have or do. So, yeah, I don't know how someone who doesn't know the Lord, how they would deal with some of the things I've been through. It's not easy, and it's a day-by-day thing, of course. But He's brought a lot of good times into my life, despite the obstacles I've needed to overcome. So that allows me to deal with the emotion of having the limitations that I do. So, does that answer your question? Good.
Are you a pretty good shot?
Well, I knocked my antelope down in Wyoming last year at over 300 yards. So.
Is that with the crossbow?
Not with the crossbow.
What's your favorite food?
What's your favorite food?
This is wild game. So I get to go hunting for it, I guess.
Anyone else? Yeah. Where in Wyoming, what? You go hunting, where in Wyoming?
There's a ranch, it's actually fairly close to Belfouche, South Dakota, so it'd be, the very north, east corner of Wyoming, actually right south of the Montana border. In that area is where I've gone so far. I have, different ideas for some units I'd like to hunt antelope or mule deer in, in the future. But right now, that's kind of my go-to spot. So.
Troy's from Wyoming. He was trying to get some insider information.
Yeah.
Lily, you had a question? What are you doing currently? Currently for physical therapy.
I have kind of a platform that I roll up on, and it's called core sticks. It's kind of like if you envision like a pole flex machine with the rods that bend. I kind of have something similar to that where I attach my hands to the poles, and I'm able to do different motions and exercises. And I try to do that, as often as I can. Some of the best therapy for me is getting outside and hopping in the track chair and just kind of seeing what trouble I can get into.
Sean?
Do you still have quite a bit of pain in your neck and ribs there?
Yeah, I have. Every day I usually have a period where I have some pretty good pain, but I've found ways to deal with that, either putting heat on or medication or things. Sometimes if I get a little too wild in the tractor, I have a little more neck pain, but yeah, I still have pain every day.
What was the scariest part about being in the hospital?
I think the part that bothered me the most would be, when you're not using your lungs, they tend to fill up with fluid and things like that. And on occasion, they have to get that fluid out, so they put a tube down that trach, that hole in my throat, and they have to suck that stuff out. And it kind of gave you the feeling like you weren't able to breathe. So that's kind of the scariest part. But after you got a lot more used to it, it wasn't as bad. But yeah, I didn't like that part of it very much.
Was there a hand down in the front row earlier? I thought, no? Oh, yes. Sorry. How does the chair work?
So I have this straw here that basically I give different commands with the amount of air I sip or puff into the straw. So, for example, if I give one hard puff, it will lock the chair in forward motion. Or if I give a soft sip or a soft puff, it'll move it left and right. So it's a little difficult to explain, but I will say there's kind of a large learning curve where to start out with, you run into a lot of things.
How did the family deal with your accident?
I know it was, I mean, I could see it in my mom, like, it was real hard for her. You know, but she's an incredibly strong woman. You know, I guess to answer that question, you know, it was hard for everybody. You know, not just me. I think in ways it's harder for the people you love to, you know, watch someone that they care about go through some of the things I had to go through. But, you know, I think my sisters and my mom, like myself, are able to see not only how I'm blessed as a result of what I've been through, but they themselves and other people around me have been blessed as well. So, you know, that it's also, you know, a day by day thing. There's times where I know it's harder for them. But, you know, we are all have very strong faith, and that's what gets us through and allows us to realize that a lot of good things can come out of the hardships the Lord brings into your life. So.
Who is living with you?
So my mom lives with me. I have a house in Oakby in Minnesota, and then I have, you know, a few different, what we call home health nurses that come in to help me through my daily routine, and at times that the person that does that is my mom. So it's good that she could be right there for the days that we don't have somebody come in, and she also works right across the street from my house. So it's, I mean, we're very fortunate to have the situation that we do. So.
Maybe two more questions, Dr.
You mentioned Joe, and your current relationship with God is an inspiration to all of us. But you've been severely tested, like Job. Are you comfortable with perhaps going through a little bit of that, like what he did with the anger, and then finally acceptance, and then to where you currently are with God now?
Yeah, there's definitely a point where, you know, you really wonder why certain things are happening, and there is, you know, there was a point where I was angry about the things that that were happening to me, and yeah, there's definitely, I would say, that progression, and just where I am right now is certainly past all that. There are days that are harder than others. There's times where, you know, I really wish I could do what I used to be able to do. But I think it's, you know, just like each and every day you strengthen your faith and your connection with God, and just like maintaining your faith, it's a daily thing. It's something you do every day. So dealing with the frustrations that come with the hardships that I've been through, it's a daily thing. So, and each and every day, more and more, I realize that, you know, God's plan for me is going to be better than anything I wish or anything that I desire in my heart to do, he's going to lead me to what's far more incredible than what I could find on my own.
Yes, last question.
Was there ever a point when you hit rock bottom, just emotionally, at some point?
I don't know if there was a rock bottom time. I think, it was all, you kind of take it as it came. Because there were so many things that, first, I had the initial injuries from the accident, but then there's, the complications and things just kind of kept coming and coming. So you dealt with everything as it came. And I don't think there was ever a point where you had time to think about a rock bottom. You just dealt with it as it came. So I don't think I can really say that there was a point that it was just, oh, this is the worst time. You deal with one thing and get past it. And when the next one came, God allowed me to be ready for that. So.
Well, Lloyd, we wish you continued blessings in your life, and we thank you so much for making the trip over here and sharing your story with us. So thank you very much. And I would suggest fifth period teachers, if you want to gather your students over and decide what you want them to do for the next 20 minutes, leave that up to the individual teachers.